when the alarm screamed across the naval base and someone shouted, "We need Viper 1 now!" Through the radio, every single person in that kitchen turned to look at me. The girl peeling potatoes, the girl they had all been laughing at just 5 minutes ago, and in that moment I knew my life was about to change forever. My name is Amanda White. I'm 26 years old and I've been in the United States Navy for 8 years. But if you had seen me that Tuesday afternoon in March, you wouldn't have believed it. I was standing in the corner of the base kitchen, wearing a stained apron over my uniform, peeling my 400th potato of the day. 400. I had counted every single one. My hands were raw and wrinkled from the cold water. My back ached from standing in the same position for 6 hours straight. And my pride, well, that had been ground down to nothing about 2 months ago. The kitchen was hot and loud. Industrial ovens roared, pots clanged. The head cook, a massive man named Rodriguez with arms like tree trunks, barked orders at the other kitchen staff. Nobody talked to me. Nobody even looked at me. I was invisible. Punishment duty did that to you. Peeling potatoes for 8 hours a day, 6 days a week for 3 months. That was my sentence for disobedience and reckless endangerment. At least, that's what the official report said. I dropped another peeled potato into the industrial sink with a wet thunk and reached for the next one. The knife felt heavy in my hand. Everything felt heavy these days. From somewhere in the kitchen, I heard laughter. 2 junior sailors were joking around by the prep station, probably talking about their weekend plans, about normal things that normal sailors got to do. I used to be one of them. I used to have friends on this base. I used to have a purpose. Now I had potatoes. My mind drifted as I worked, going to the place it always went when I was trying not to think. The ocean. The deep, dark ocean where sound traveled in strange ways, where silence could be deafening, and where I used to be the best at what I did. Viper 1. That's what they used to call me, my call sign. The name that other naval operators spoke with respect, sometimes even fear. The sonar specialist who could hear things nobody else could, who could track enemy submarines through thermal layers and background noise that would confuse anyone else. I had been a legend. Briefly. Now I was the potato girl. Rodriguez walked past me, not even glancing in my direction. To him, I was just another screw-up serving punishment time. He had no idea who I was, what I had been. Nobody on this base did. They had all transferred in after my demotion. The old crew, the ones who knew Viper 1, they had all moved on to other assignments. I was alone here with my shame and my potatoes. I was reaching for another potato when I heard it, a sound so faint that anyone else would have missed it. A low vibration, barely perceptible, coming through the walls of the kitchen. My hand froze halfway to the potato bin. My entire body went rigid. I knew that sound. I had heard it 1,000 times in training, dozens of times in real operations. It was the deep thrumming pulse of the base's long-range sonar array, activating at full power. They only used full power for one reason: active threat detection. My heart started to pound. I turned my head slightly, listening more carefully. There it was again, the pulse. And then, underneath it, something else. Something that made my blood run cold. The base emergency alert system warming up. Oh God. Before I could process what was happening, the alarms erupted. A deafening blare filled the kitchen, red lights flashing from every corner. The sound was so loud and sudden that Rodriguez dropped the pot he was holding. It crashed to the floor with a tremendous bang. Emergency. Emergency. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. The automated voice kept repeating, cold and mechanical, as chaos exploded around me. Sailors ran in every direction. Someone knocked over a rack of pans. Rodriguez was shouting something, but I couldn't hear him over the alarms. I stood frozen, the potato peeler still in my hand, as 8 years of training fought against 3 months of being treated like I didn't matter. Then I heard it. a voice crackling over the base-wide radio system that connected to speakers throughout every building. A voice filled with barely controlled panic. Submarine contact bearing 270, range 3 kilometers and closing. Aggressive posture, torpedo tubes flooded. My stomach dropped through the floor. 3 kilometers. That was nothing. That was right on top of us. Another voice on the radio, this one belonging to Commander Peterson, the base tactical officer. Get me a firing solution. Where the hell is our countermeasure team? Response came immediately from someone who sounded young and terrified. Sir, countermeasure team is conducting drills 50 kilometers out. They can't get back in time. What about sonar tracking? Can anyone get me a precise location on that sub? Negative, sir. It's using the thermal layer to mask its signature. We can't pin it down. I felt something breaking loose inside my chest. The thermal layer. Of course. That's exactly what I would do if I were trying to sneak up on a naval base. Hide in the temperature gradient where sonar waves bend and scatter, where even the best equipment struggles to get a clear picture, but I could track it. I knew I could. I had done it before, dozens of times. Commander Peterson's voice came back over the radio, and now I could hear the fear in it. We need someone who can work sonar in difficult conditions. We need an expert. We need... He hesitated, and I knew what he was thinking. I knew who he needed. But I wasn't that person anymore. I was just the girl peeling potatoes. Another voice cut in over the radio, older, gravelly, with the authority of someone who had been in the Navy for decades. I recognized it immediately. Admiral Morrison, the base commander. What about White? Where is Petty Officer White? My heart stopped. The kitchen had gone silent. Everyone was staring at the radio speaker mounted on the wall. Commander Peterson responded, and I could hear the reluctance in his voice. Sir, White is on punishment detail. She's been stripped of her security clearance. She can't access the command center. A pause. A long, terrible pause filled only by the wailing alarms. Then Admiral Morrison's voice came back, harder than steel. I don't care if she's scrubbing toilets in hell. Find her, get her to the command center, now. Another voice. Someone from communications. Sir, her clearance codes have been revoked. She can't get into the secure facilities. Override it. Full authorization. My code, my responsibility. A beat of silence. Sir, are you sure? After what happened... Admiral Morrison cut him off with a roar that made the radio speakers crackle. That submarine has torpedo doors open and is 3 kilometers from this base. We have 4,000 personnel on this installation. I need the best sonar operator in the United States Navy in that command center in the next 2 minutes, or we are all going to die. Do you understand me? Yes, sir. Then the Admiral's voice again, slightly quieter but filled with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Find VIPER 1. Find her now. The kitchen was dead silent except for the alarms. Every single person was staring at me. Rodriguez's mouth was hanging open. The 2 junior sailors who had been laughing earlier looked like they had seen a ghost. I stood there with a half-peeled potato in one hand and a peeler in the other, my apron soaked with potato starch water, my hair falling out of its regulation bun. And for the first time in 3 months, I felt like myself again. I dropped the peeler. It clattered against the metal counter. I'm VIPER 1, I said quietly. Nobody moved. I ripped off my apron and threw it on the floor. And I need to get to the command center, now. I ran. Not walked, not jogged. I ran at full sprint out of that kitchen, through the mess hall, past shocked sailors who pressed themselves against the walls to let me pass. My boots pounded against the concrete floors. The alarms were still screaming. Red emergency lights flashed in the corridors. I knew this base like the back of my hand. Even after 3 months in the kitchen, my body remembered every turn, every shortcut. Left at the end of the corridor, through the double doors, down 2 flights of stairs, across the main courtyard where sailors were running to their emergency stations. Someone shouted at me, probably trying to ask where I was going, but I didn't stop. 3 kilometers. The submarine was 3 kilometers away. A torpedo could cover that distance in under 2 minutes at full speed. We might already be dead. We just didn't know it yet. I burst through the doors of the mains command building. 2 Marine guards were stationed there, and they immediately raised their rifles. "Halt! Identify yourself!" "Petty Officer Amanda White," I gasped, my chest heaving. "Clearance code." "I don't have current codes, but Admiral Morrison authorized." One of the guards pressed his radio. "We have a Petty Officer White here, requesting access. She claims Admiral Morrison." The radio crackled immediately. "Let her through! Now!" The guard's eyes went wide. They stepped aside, and I didn't wait for further permission. I ran down the main corridor toward the secure entrance to the command center. The biometric scanner next to the door glowed red, unauthorized. 3 months ago, this door had opened for me automatically. I had walked through it dozens of times a day. Now it was locked against me like I was an enemy. I slammed my fist against it in frustration. "Open the door!" From inside, I heard shouting, confusion, fear. Then a mechanical click and the light turned green. The door slid open. I stepped into the command center and every single person in that room turned to look at me. The command center was chaos. Dozens of personnel crowded around glowing screens and radar displays. Officers shouted coordinates and status updates. The main tactical display showed a 3-dimensional map of the ocean surrounding the base, with our position marked in blue and a pulsing red dot closing in from the west, the enemy submarine. Commander Peterson stood at the center of it all, his face pale and sweating. When he saw me, his expression twisted between relief and anger. "White, you're here." "I'm here," I said, moving toward the sonar station. "Where's the contact?" He gestured to the main display. Bearing 270 depth, approximately 150 meters. Range now 2.8 kilometers and still closing. We're getting scattered returns, nothing solid. It's using the thermal layer to hide its acoustic signature. I pushed past 2 junior technicians and dropped into the chair at the primary sonar workstation. My hands moved automatically across the controls, fingers remembering patterns they hadn't touched in 3 months. The screen came alive with cascading waterfall displays, frequency analyzers, and bearing indicators. It was like coming home. "White," Peterson said behind me, "you need to understand something. You're here because we're desperate, but you're still under disciplinary action. The moment this crisis is over..." I cut him off without turning around. "The moment this crisis is over, you can throw me back in the kitchen. Right now, shut up and let me work." I heard someone gasp. "You didn't talk to a commander like that. Not ever." But Peterson went silent. I pulled on the headset, and the ocean filled my ears. Most people think sonar is just pinging and listening for echoes. It's not. It's an art. It's listening to the symphony of the ocean and picking out the one instrument that doesn't belong. I heard the ambient noise of the sea, the biological sounds, shrimp and fish and whales in the distance, the mechanical sounds of our own base, pumps and generators creating a constant background hum, the thermal layer where warm and cold water met, creating a sound barrier that bent and distorted everything. And somewhere in all that noise, hidden like a ghost, was a submarine that wanted to kill us all. I adjusted the frequency filters, narrowing the band, cutting out the biological noise. My eyes scanned the waterfall display, looking for patterns, for anything that repeated too regularly to be natural. "Come on," I whispered. "I know you're out there." "White, how long is this going to take?" Peterson asked, and I could hear the fear in his voice. "As long as it takes," I snapped. "You want me to do this right, or you want me to do it fast? We might not have time for both. Then pray I get lucky." I closed my eyes, focusing entirely on the sounds in my headphones. This was what had made me VIPER 1. Not just my technical skills, but my ability to hear what others couldn't. There, so faint I almost missed it. A low frequency, rhythmic pulse, too regular to be natural, too quiet to be a commercial vessel. It was a submarine's reactor coolant pump. "Got you," I breathed. My hands flew across the controls, isolating that frequency, tracking it through the acoustic clutter. The computer started calculating bearing and range, but I was already ahead of it. Contact bears 265, range 2.6 kilometers, depth 160 meters, speed approximately 8 knots. Peterson leaned over my shoulder. Are you sure? Our main array couldn't get a solid track. Your main array is using standard search patterns, I said. The sub-commander knows that. He's exploiting the gaps. But I'm not using standard patterns. I adjusted the passive sonar angle, getting a better acoustic picture. He's running a Russian Kilo class, I continued, my confidence growing. Diesel electric. Very quiet. He's on battery power, trying to minimize noise, but his coolant pumps are still running. That's what I'm tracking. How did you... Peterson started, then stopped. How did you hear that? Because 8 years ago, I spent 6 months doing nothing but studying Soviet-era submarine acoustics. I can identify 30 different submarine classes by their mechanical signatures alone. I glanced up at him. That's why I was VIPER 1, Commander. That's why the Admiral called for me. Peterson stepped back, and I saw something in his face. Not just surprise, recognition. He was finally understanding who I actually was. White, he said quietly. What happened? Why were you demoted? Not now, I said, focusing back on the display. We can discuss my career failures after we don't die. The red dot on the main tactical display suddenly shifted. The submarine was changing course. He's turning, someone shouted. New bearing 250. He knows we detected him, I said immediately. He's repositioning for a torpedo shot. Can you maintain track? Yes, but we have a bigger problem. What? I pointed to a second set of faint acoustic returns appearing on my display. There's another one. The room went dead silent. What did you just say? Peterson's voice was barely a whisper. There's a second submarine, I repeated, my fingers dancing across the controls. Eastern approach. Bearing 090, range approximately 3 kilometers. 2 targets converging on our position from different vectors. This is a coordinated attack. Oh my God, someone whispered. Peterson grabbed a radio handset. Admiral Morrison, we have a situation update. 2 hostile submarines. Repeat, 2 submarines converging on base position. The Admiral's voice came back immediately, crackling with static. Can White track both? Peterson looked at me. I was already splitting my display, dividing my attention between 2 separate acoustic signatures. Yes, I said, I can track both. But tracking isn't enough. We need to do something about them. What are our options? The Admiral asked over the radio. I took a deep breath. This was the moment I had to. Make the call that could save everyone or condemn them all. Sir, our countermeasure team is too far out. Our defensive systems are designed for single-target engagement. We can't handle 2 submarines simultaneously with automated systems. Then what do we do, Petty Officer White? I hesitated. What I was about to suggest would either make me a hero or end my career permanently. We go on the offensive, sir. We have 4 Mark 48 torpedoes in our coastal defense batteries. I can calculate firing solutions for both targets. White, Peterson interrupted. You're a sonar operator, not a weapons officer. I used to be both, I said coldly. Before you all decided I was too reckless to be trusted. The Admiral's voice cut through. Explain, Petty Officer. What happened before? My hands froze on the controls. This was it, the moment I had been avoiding for 3 months. Sir, I said slowly, 3 months ago I was the senior sonar operator on the destroyer USS Hawkins. We were conducting exercises with a friendly submarine when we detected an actual hostile contact. Unknown submarine, Chinese Type 039, stalking our position. Go on, our captain ordered us to maintain defensive posture only, wait for backup, follow protocol. But I could hear on the sonar that the hostile was preparing to fire. He wasn't running an exercise. It was real. My voice was shaking now, but I forced myself to continue. I calculated a firing solution and recommended we engage immediately. The captain refused. said I was being paranoid. That Chinese submarines didn't operate in that area. He ordered me to stand down. "What did you do?" the admiral asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. "I disobeyed his direct order, sir. I fed the firing solution to our weapons officer and convinced him to launch. We destroyed the hostile submarine before it could fire on us." "So you saved the ship?" Peterson said slowly. "I saved the ship," I agreed. "But I violated the chain of command. I took action without authorization. The captain filed charges against me for insubordination and reckless endangerment. He said I had fired on what might have been a friendly vessel, that I had risked starting an international incident." "Was it friendly?" the admiral asked. "I pulled the acoustic signature logs myself afterward," I said. "It was definitely hostile. Weapons armed, targeting solution locked. We recovered debris that confirmed it was a Chinese attack submarine operating illegally in international waters. But by then, the damage to my career was done." The captain couldn't admit he had been wrong, so he doubled down on the charges. I was demoted, stripped of my clearances, and sent here to peel potatoes. Silence filled the command center. The first submarine shifted position again on my display. "Sir," I said urgently, "I don't have time to relitigate the past. Right now, we have 2 hostile submarines about to put torpedoes in the water. I can track them. I can calculate firing solutions, but I need authorization to engage." Another long pause. Then Admiral Morrison's voice came through, clear and absolute. "Petty Officer White, I am giving you full tactical authority. You are authorized to engage both hostile targets. Fire when ready." Peterson's head snapped toward the radio. "Sir, with all due respect, White is not qualified to—" "Commander Peterson," the admiral's voice was ice, "I suggest you let Viper 1 do her job. Or would you prefer to explain to the families of 4,000 dead sailors why you overruled the only person who can save them?" Peterson's mouth closed with a click. I turned back to my console, and for the first time in 3 months, I felt the weight lift off my shoulders. This was what I was born to do. "Weapons control," I called out. "I need 2 torpedoes armed and ready to launch. Tubes 1 and 3. A young lieutenant at the weapons station looked at Peterson, who nodded reluctantly. "Tubes 1 and 3 armed and ready," the lieutenant confirmed. I pulled up the firing solution calculator, my fingers moving faster than thought. Range, bearing, target speed, target depth, water temperature, salinity, current speed. Dozens of variables that had to be perfect. Target 1, bearing 265, range 2.4 kilometers, depth 160 meters, speed 8 knots. Firing solution calculated. Tube 1 ready. The weapons system beeped confirmation. Target 2, bearing 095, range 2.9 kilometers, depth 170 meters, speed 6 knots. Firing solution calculated. Tube 3 ready. Another beep. I took a deep breath. My hand hovered over the firing authorization key. Everyone in that command center was watching me. The girl who had been peeling potatoes 20 minutes ago, the girl they had all dismissed as a failure. "In 3 months, you'll all forget this," I thought. "You'll forget that I saved you. You'll go back to treating me like I'm nothing. But right now, I'm everything." I pressed the key. Firing tubes 1 and 3. The deck shuddered beneath us as 2 Mark 48 torpedoes launched from the coastal defense batteries, racing into the water at over 50 knots. I immediately pulled my focus back to the sonar, tracking both torpedoes as they accelerated toward their targets. Time to impact: target 1, 90 seconds. Target 2, 110 seconds. The command center was silent except for the quiet beeping of countdown timers. 80 seconds. On the sonar, I could see the hostile submarines reacting. The first one went to full speed trying to evade. The second one started dropping countermeasures, acoustic decoys designed to confuse the torpedo. 60 seconds. "Come on," I whispered. "Stay on target." The torpedo tracking target 1 adjusted its course, following the submarine's evasive maneuver perfectly. 40 seconds. Target 2's countermeasures were working. The torpedo was starting to drift off course, chasing the decoy instead of the actual submarine. "No, no, no," I muttered. My hands flying across the controls. I sent a course correction signal to the torpedo, manually guiding it back toward the real target. 20 seconds. Both torpedoes were closing fast. 10 seconds. Everyone held their breath. Impact. The sonar display exploded with noise as the first torpedo struck its target. The submarine's hull imploded under the pressure, creating a massive acoustic signature. "Target 1 destroyed," I announced. 3 seconds later, the second impact. Another explosion. Another dead submarine. "Target 2 destroyed." For one heartbeat, nobody moved. Then the command center erupted in cheers. People were hugging each other, crying, shouting with relief. I just sat there, staring at the sonar display, my hands still on the controls. We were alive. 4,000 people. Alive because I had done what I was trained to do. Commander Peterson stepped up beside me. His hand landed on my shoulder. "You saved us," he said quietly. "You saved all of us." I looked up at him. "Yes," I said. "I did." The cheering died down slowly as reality set in. 2 submarines destroyed. An act of war had just occurred in these waters, and we were standing in the middle of it. Commander Peterson pulled his hand off my shoulder and stepped back, his expression shifting from relief to something harder, more calculating. "White, maintain sonar watch. I want continuous monitoring of all approaches. If there are more submarines out there, I need to know immediately." "Already on it, sir," I said, adjusting my displays to full spectrum search pattern. Peterson turned to address the room. "All stations, maintain battle readiness. Communications, get me Pac Fleet Command on secure channel immediately. Intelligence, I want identification on those submarines. Where did they come from? What nation? And why were they here?" The command center transformed from celebration to focused efficiency. Officers returned to their stations. The radar operators expanded their search patterns. Everyone moved with renewed purpose. But I could feel eyes on me. Sideways glances from personnel who had never seen me before today. Whispered conversations at the edges of the room. The girl from the kitchen just killed 2 submarines. How is that even possible? I heard she used to be someone important. I kept my focus on the sonar, scanning frequencies, listening to the ocean. Nothing. No more contacts. Whatever nation had sent those submarines, they had only committed 2 vessels to this attack, a mistake that had cost them everything. The door to the command center slid open, and I heard boots marching across the floor. Heavy, deliberate footsteps that carried authority. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Admiral Morrison. Everyone in the room snapped to attention. "As you were," his gravelly voice commanded. I remained seated at the sonar station, my hands still on the controls, still watching the displays. Leaving my post during active watch would be a violation of protocol. The Admiral's footsteps approached until he was standing directly behind me. "Petty Officer White." "Admiral," I responded without turning. "Status report. 2 hostile submarines destroyed. No additional contacts detected. All approaches clear. Base is secure, sir." A pause. "Look at me, sailor." I took a slow breath, then swiveled my chair around to face him. Admiral Morrison was a tall man, 63 years old, with iron-gray hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from granite. 3 rows of ribbons decorated his chest, including a Navy cross and 2 Purple Hearts. He had commanded submarines, destroyers, carrier groups. He had been in the Navy for 41 years. And right now, he was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Do you know what you just did?" he asked quietly. "I neutralized 2 hostile submarines that were preparing to attack this base, sir. You fired on foreign vessels in international waters without confirmed hostile intent. You potentially started a war." The words hit me like a physical blow. My stomach twisted. "Sir, they had torpedo tubes flooded. They were in attack position. Multiple vessels converging on a military installation is not innocent passage. I'm aware of that, petty officer. But you should also be aware that your actions will have consequences that extend far beyond this base. He pulled a tablet from under his arm and held it up so I could see the screen. It showed a satellite image, zoomed in on debris, floating on the ocean surface. Parts of a submarine, scattered across a quarter-mile radius. Do you know what this is? The remains of Target 1, sir. Correct. And do you know what we found in that debris field? I swallowed hard. No, sir. Chinese markings. This was a People's Liberation Army Navy submarine. You just destroyed a vessel belonging to a nuclear-armed superpower. My blood ran cold. Sir, The Admiral held up one hand, cutting me off. Which is exactly what needed to happen, because 20 minutes ago we received confirmation from Naval Intelligence. Those submarines were part of a covert operation to probe our coastal defenses. They wanted to see how we would respond to a surprise attack. They didn't expect us to detect them, and they certainly didn't expect us to engage. He lowered the tablet. Thanks to you, Petty Officer White, we sent a very clear message. Our defenses are not as vulnerable as they thought. And that message might have just prevented a larger conflict. I exhaled slowly, feeling some of the tension leave my shoulders. So I didn't start a war? No, the Admiral said, the ghost of a smile touching his lips. You probably prevented one. Commander Peterson had moved closer during this exchange. Now he spoke up. Admiral, with respect, we need to address the chain of command issues here. White was under disciplinary action. She shouldn't have had access to weapons systems at all. The Admiral's expression hardened as he turned to face Peterson. Commander, that submarine was 2.4 kilometers from this base with torpedo tubes flooded. How long would it have taken your standard protocols to authorize a response? Peterson hesitated. Sir, following proper procedure would have required confirmation from Pac Fleet Command, weapons authorization codes, multiple layers of approval. How long, Commander? Peterson's jaw tightened. 15 to 20 minutes, sir. And how long would it have taken that submarine to fire its torpedoes? Less than 2 minutes, sir. The Admiral nodded slowly. So you're telling me that following proper protocol would have resulted in the complete destruction of this base and the deaths of 4,000 personnel. Is that correct? Peterson said nothing. Answer me, Commander. Yes, sir. That's correct. The Admiral turned back to me. Petty Officer White, stand up. I stood, my heart pounding again. 3 months ago, you were demoted for violating the chain of command, for taking action without authorization when you believed lives were in danger. Today, you did the exact same thing. Do you see a pattern here? Yes, sir, I said quietly. And what pattern is that? I'm really bad at following orders when I think those orders are going to get people killed, sir. Several people in the command center tried to hide smiles. Even Commander Peterson's lips twitched slightly. The Admiral studied me for a long moment. That's a problem, Petty Officer. The military runs on discipline and chain of command. We can't have sailors making independent decisions every time they disagree with their superiors. No, sir. However, he continued, we also can't afford to have sailors who blindly follow orders when those orders are clearly wrong. What we need are sailors who understand the difference, who have the judgment to know when protocol serves us and when it kills us. He stepped closer, his voice dropping so only I could hear. What we need, Petty Officer White, are sailors like you. I felt my throat tighten. The problem, the Admiral continued, now speaking loud enough for the whole room to hear, is that your previous commanding officer didn't understand that. Captain Richards of the USS Hawkins saw your actions as insubordination, but I see them differently. He pulled a small box from his pocket. I see a sailor who has saved 2 ships and 1 naval base in the span of 3 months. A sailor who has the courage to act when action is needed, regardless of personal cost. A sailor who embodies everything the Navy should be. He opened the box. Inside was a set of rank insignia, not the single chevron of a petty officer 3rd class that I had been demoted to, but the eagle and 3 chevrons of a petty officer first class, 2 ranks higher than I had been before my demotion. Effective immediately, the Admiral said. You are promoted to petty officer first class. All disciplinary actions are hereby expunged from your record. Your security clearances are fully restored, and you are reassigned as senior sonar specialist for this base, reporting directly to Commander Peterson. Sir? I whispered, unable to say anything else. The Admiral removed my old insignia and pinned the new ones onto my uniform himself. His movements were precise, practiced, ceremonial. When he finished, he stepped back and saluted me. Welcome back, Viper 1. I returned the salute, tears burning in my eyes that I refused to let fall. The command center erupted in applause again, but this time it was different. This wasn't relief. This was recognition, respect. I had earned my place back. Commander Peterson stepped forward and extended his hand. I owe you an apology, Petty Officer White. I should have looked deeper into your record before I dismissed you as just another disciplinary case. I shook his hand. You didn't know, sir, and to be fair, I was peeling potatoes. Peterson actually smiled at that. Well, you won't be peeling any more potatoes. I need you on that sonar station full time. We're going to rebuild our entire acoustic detection protocol, using your methods. I'd like that, sir. The Admiral cleared his throat. Now, as much as I'd like to continue celebrating, we have work to do. The Chinese government is going to deny everything, of course. Those submarines were never there. This never happened. But they know we know, and that changes the strategic calculus in this entire region. He looked around the room at all the assembled personnel. What happened here today remains classified. Top secret. None of you will speak about it outside this room. Is that clear? Yes, sir, came the unified response. Good. Peterson, coordinate with intelligence. I want a full report on Chinese submarine activity in these waters for the past 6 months. White, maintain sonar watch for the next 12 hours. I want to make sure there are no more surprises. Yes, sir, we both said. The Admiral started toward the door, then paused and looked back at me. And White? Tomorrow, you and I are going to have a conversation about your future. I think you might be wasted on sonar work alone. Sir? The Navy needs officers who can think independently, who have combat experience and tactical judgment. Have you ever considered officer candidate school? My breath caught. Sir, I never thought that was an option for someone like me. Someone like you, the Admiral said, is exactly who we need leading the next generation. Think about it. With that, he left, and I was alone with my thoughts and my sonar display and the weight of everything that had just happened. Petty Officer First Class, Amanda White. Viper 1. No longer the girl in the kitchen. I sat back down at my station and pulled on the headset. The ocean filled my ears again, that familiar symphony of sound that had always been my home. Commander Peterson appeared at my shoulder. White, I'm putting you on rotating watch schedule. 6 hours on, 6 hours off. I'll have 2 junior technicians assigned to you for training. I want them to learn how you do what you do. Understood, sir. And White? Yes, sir? Thank you for saving us, for not giving up even after we gave up on you. I looked up at him. I never gave up on me, sir. I just needed someone else to remember who I was. He nodded slowly, then walked away to coordinate with the other officers. I turned back to my displays, my fingers dancing across the controls, fine-tuning the search patterns, listening to the infinite complexity of the ocean. This was where I belonged, not in a kitchen peeling potatoes, not hidden away as punishment for being right. Here, at this station, protecting lives, doing what I was born to do. The sonar pinged softly, methodically, sending acoustic waves into the deep, and I listened, always listening, because out there in the dark water, there would always be threats, there would always be danger, and as long as I was here, As long as Viper 1 was watching, this base would be safe. I smiled to myself, a small private smile that nobody else could see. I was home. The next morning, I stood outside Admiral Morrison's office, wearing my dress uniform with the new Petty Officer First Class insignia freshly sewn on. My hands weren't shaking, but they wanted to be. Through the door, I could hear voices. The Admiral was on a call, his tone clipped and formal, probably dealing with the political fallout from yesterday. 2 Chinese submarines destroyed. Even if it never made the news, even if both governments pretended it never happened, people at the highest levels were having very difficult conversations right now, and I was at the center of it all. The door opened, and the Admiral's aide, a young lieutenant, gestured me inside. "Petty Officer White, the Admiral will see you now." I entered the office and stood at attention. Admiral Morrison sat behind a large mahogany desk covered with reports and satellite images. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept, but his eyes were sharp as ever. "At ease, White. Sit down." I sat in the chair across from him, keeping my posture straight. The Admiral studied me for a moment, then leaned back in his chair. "I've been on the phone with the Pentagon for the past 4 hours. Do you know what they wanted to talk about?" "The submarine incident, sir." "You," he said simply. "They wanted to know everything about you. Your training, your service record, your psychological evaluations. They wanted to know how a petty officer who was peeling potatoes managed to save an entire naval base." "What did you tell them, sir?" "I told them the truth. That you're the best sonar operator in the Navy. That you have tactical instincts most officers spend 20 years developing. And that we almost lost you because one captain couldn't handle being proven wrong." He pulled a file from his desk and slid it toward me. "This is your complete service record. I've spent the morning reading every word. Do you know what I found?" "No, sir." "A pattern. Every single time you've been disciplined or reprimanded, it's been for the same reason: taking initiative, making decisions above your pay grade, refusing to follow orders you believed were wrong." The Admiral tapped the file. "On the USS Hawkins, you disobeyed a direct order and saved the ship. Yesterday, you bypassed protocol and saved this base. And before that, during your first deployment, you convinced your commanding officer to change course during a storm. He filed a formal complaint about your insubordination. 2 hours later, that storm destroyed 3 civilian vessels that had been on our original course. I didn't know what to say. You keep saving lives, White, and you keep getting punished for it. Do you know why? Because I don't follow orders, sir." "No," the Admiral said firmly, "because you're thinking like an officer while wearing an enlisted rank. That's the real problem." He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the base below. The Navy has 2 types of people: enlisted personnel who follow orders and execute them with precision, and officers who make the orders, who assess situations and make strategic decisions. You've been trying to do both, and it's been tearing your career apart. Sir, I'm not officer material. I'm just a sonar tech who saved 2 ships and a base," he interrupted, turning back to face me. "Who can track submarines through thermal layers that confuse our best equipment? Who can calculate firing solutions in her head while under pressure? Who has the courage to take responsibility for life or death decisions?" He walked back to his desk and picked up another document. "I'm sending your name to Officer Candidate School. You'll begin training in 6 months. When you graduate, you'll commission as an ensign with specialization in submarine warfare and tactical operations." My mouth fell open. "Sir, I don't know if I'm ready for that." "You're not," he said bluntly. "Nobody is. That's what training is for. But you have something that can't be taught. You have judgment, real judgment, the kind that saves lives. What if I fail? Then you fail and you come back here as a petty officer first class with nothing lost. But I don't think you'll fail, White. I think you're going to be exactly what the Navy needs." I sat there, stunned, trying to process what was happening. 6 months ago, I had been a rising star. Then one decision, one act of disobedience, and I was peeling potatoes. And now, Less than 24 hours after the lowest point of my career, I was being offered a path to become an officer. It felt unreal. "Sir, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "Why are you doing this?" "You don't know me." Yesterday was the first time we ever met. The Admiral sat down and looked at me with an expression that was almost fatherly. 41 years ago, I was a young lieutenant on a destroyer. We detected what we thought was a Soviet submarine during the Cold War. My captain wanted to engage immediately. I argued against it, said we didn't have positive identification. The captain threatened to have me court-martialed for cowardice. What happened? I disobeyed his order to prepare weapons, insisted on additional confirmation. Turned out it was a whale, a blue whale with an unusual acoustic signature. If we had fired, we would have started World War III over a whale. He smiled slightly. My captain never forgave me, gave me terrible fitness reports, nearly destroyed my career. But another admiral, a man named Richardson, saw what happened. He pulled me aside and told me the same thing I'm telling you now. The Navy needs people who can think, not just follow. He sponsored me for advanced training and made sure I got opportunities despite my captain's objections. "So you're paying it forward," I said quietly. "I'm ensuring that the Navy doesn't lose another talented officer to a system that sometimes punishes people for being right. Admiral Richardson saved my career. I'm saving yours." "Thank you, sir." I don't know what else to say. Say yes. Say you'll go to OCS. Say you'll become the officer I know you can be. I thought about the kitchen, the potatoes, the 3 months of humiliation and isolation, the feeling of being invisible, worthless, forgotten. And then I thought about yesterday, the command center, the sonar, the moment when everything came together, and I remembered who I really was, Viper 1. "Yes, sir," I said firmly. "I'll do it." "Good," the Admiral said, standing up. "Now get out of my office. You have a sonar station to run and junior technicians to train. Show them how Viper 1 does it." "Yes, sir." I stood, saluted, and headed for the door. "And White?" I turned back. "Welcome home." I smiled. "Thank you, sir." It's good to be home. I walked out of that office feeling lighter than I had in months. The future was uncertain. Officer candidate school would be brutal, and there would be challenges ahead that I couldn't even imagine yet. But for the first time in 3 months, I had hope. 3 days later, I stood in front of a classroom with 6 junior sonar technicians sitting at workstations. Commander Peterson had assigned them to me for training. They were young, eager, terrified of making mistakes. I remembered being exactly like them. "All right," I began, my voice carrying across the room. "Today we're going to learn how to track submarines in difficult acoustic conditions. Most of what you learned in school is theory. I'm going to teach you how it actually works." I pulled up a recording on the main display, an acoustic signature from yesterday's engagement. This is the sound of a Chinese Kilo-class submarine trying to hide in a thermal layer. To most sonar operators, this just looks like noise. But if you know what to listen for, you can pick out the signature. I played the recording, and they all leaned forward, concentrating. One of them, a young woman named Chen, raised her hand. "Petty Officer White, how did you know there were 2 submarines?" Everyone else only detected one. "Because I wasn't just listening for engine noise," I explained. "I was listening for everything. The way water flows around a hull creates subtle pressure changes. Multiple vessels create overlapping patterns. It's like hearing 2 conversations in a crowded room. Once you know they're both there, you can separate them." "Can you teach us to do that?" another technician asked. I smiled. "That's why you're here." Viper 1. Techniques aren't magic. They're just pattern recognition and experience. And I'm going to give you both. For the next 6 hours, I taught them everything I knew. How to filter acoustic clutter, how to recognize mechanical signatures, how to use mathematics and intuition together to track targets that didn't want to be found. They absorbed it like sponges, asking questions, taking notes, practicing on the simulators. This was what I was meant to do. Not just operate sonar myself, but pass on the knowledge. Create the next generation of operators who could protect the fleet. At the end of the session, Chen approached me. "Petty Officer White, can I ask you something personal?" "Go ahead." "Is it true you were peeling potatoes yesterday morning?" I laughed. "Yes, 400 potatoes before the alarms went off. How did you deal with that?" "Being demoted, I mean? Having everything taken away?" I thought about it carefully before answering. I dealt with it by remembering that my value isn't determined by my rank or my assignment. I'm good at what I do. I know I'm good. And no demotion, no punishment detail, no humiliation could change that fundamental truth. Chen nodded slowly. "They're saying you're going to OCS, that you're going to be an officer. That's the plan. You deserve it," she said simply. "Thank you, Chen. Now get out of here. You've got duty rotation in an hour." She saluted and left, and I was alone in the classroom with the sonar displays still running, showing the endless acoustic patterns of the ocean. My phone buzzed. A message from Admiral Morrison. "OCS paperwork approved. Report date confirmed for 6 months from now. Make sure you're ready." "I will be," I typed back. I looked around the classroom one last time, then turned off the displays and headed for the door. Outside, the sun was setting over the base. Sailors walked past, going about their duties. Some of them nodded at me now, recognition in their eyes. I walked past the kitchen where I had spent 3 months peeling potatoes. The door was open, and I could see Rodriguez inside shouting at someone about overcooking rice. I kept walking. That part of my life was over. The punishment, the humiliation, the feeling of being worthless. I was Viper 1 again, and soon I would be Ensign White. But titles didn't matter as much as I once thought they did. What mattered was knowing who I was, regardless of what anyone else thought. I was the girl who saved 2 ships and a base. The girl who refused to stay silent when lives were at stake. The girl who heard things no one else could hear, and nothing, not demotion, not punishment, not doubt, could ever take that away from me. I looked up at the darkening sky and smiled. Tomorrow, I would be back at the sonar station, training more technicians, protecting the base, doing what I did best. But tonight, I was going to sleep well for the first time in 3 months, because I was home. I was valued. I was exactly where I belonged. Viper 1 was back, and this time I wasn't going anywhere.